Hey, welcome to another episode of the Hardy Wrestling Podcast with your girl Stephanie Hardy. Thank you so much for listening. If this is your first time listening, welcome to the show. If this isn't your first time listening, thank you for enjoying the ride. This episode is going to be a little short because I do have something to say towards the end where I normally do my weekly recap. But I want to still do, of course, my news and gossip-ish segment. And I'm going to do a special segment paying tribute to the Undertaker, who did just retire. And then towards the end, I'm going to have something pretty personal to say to address you guys about in terms of what's been going on in the world. So sit back, relax, and listen to this kind of short but still sweet episode of the Hardy Wrestling Podcast. Alright, so in this news and gossip-ish segment, there's a lot to cover, but I'm going to go through it. And first of all, I'm going to give a happy birthday wish to Sir Wilkins of the Jobber Tears podcast, which is probably one of the most successful black wrestling podcasts out there out of New York. Is featuring him, Sir Wilkins, Mr. Black, and Janelle from HR. I love them so very much, and they have been very supportive during this journey. I want to say happy birthday to him. And along with congratulations, I want to give congratulations to Patricia Rogers and Krista B of Those Wrestling Girls. If you don't know, Those Wrestling Girls is a really great wrestling podcast held by these two ladies out of New York as well, Queen PR and Krista B. And they were actually featured on the Tamron Hall show this past weekend. I mean, not this past weekend, but this past week, talking about the Bella Twins. Here lately, the Bella Twins have been on sort of like a press run, of course, to probably promote Total Bellas. And they've had more and more media attention since their book has been released, and also since they've had their new baby boys. And Tamron Hall was doing a segment on them, and of course online there's been speculation talking about whether or not the Bella Twins would return. And Queen PR and Krista B asked a question, and they were featured, on video asking this question in their Bella Twins t-shirts. They looked so beautiful. And they asked the Bella Twins, about their ambitions to possibly win the women's tag team titles, and would they come back? To which the Bella Twins answered that they would be interested in coming back, simply because when the women's tag team titles were created, they had left and they were on the wrestling hiatus due to everything that's going on in their lives with their children and all the other stuff and other business ventures. So they feel that they have one last run in them, and they want to wait till their children are till their new babies are 2 years old, so their sons can see them on television, wrestle for those tag titles and really be able to process that. So that was really cool to see. And anytime any wrestling podcaster succeeds in any sort of media, we all succeed, and I am so happy for Queen PR and Krista B. And if you have a mind to, please check out Those Wrestling Girls and their podcast. Please check them out. We all need to support each other. So that was really great. Also in gossip-ish, we have Seth Rollins being written off of television after Survivor Series. If you saw Survivor Series this past weekend, Seth Rollins was on Team SmackDown, and he sacrificed himself, and got kicked in the face by Sheamus in order to get eliminated from Team SmackDown, and they ultimately lost their match. And the rumor is that, he's going to be written off of television to support Becky Lynch, who is his fiance, the man, and quite possibly the longest reigning Raw Women's Champion at this stage, through her pregnancy. She is due in December, which means she could be due any day now, because tomorrow is going to be November 30th. Then after that, it's going to be December. So here comes the baby. So now since he's been written off television, he's going to be with her and support her, once the baby gets here. And also, it's been kind of crazy, how he's been booked this entire year with the Mysterio family and with Murphy and all that other stuff. And he actually wrestled, one of the best matches of the year, in my opinion, against Murphy, who was breaking free from him, from being his disciple, and sort of, tying in with his love for Aaliyah Mysterio, and now with that family. And now it's looking like he might be either turning heel again or might not be turning heel again. I'm not sure, with this whole Mysterio family sort of being heel and helping him win stuff. Like, I don't know what that is. That happened on SmackDown Friday. So I don't know, but we have best wishes to Seth Rollins and Becky Lynch on their baby. And I hope it's a safe pregnancy. Also in the news, The Rock had a giant float of himself, of course, circa 1990s or maybe 1980s, with his famous fanny pack picture at the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade. Of course, every year there's this Thanksgiving Day Parade in New York City, to sort of mark the beginning of the holiday season. And they have all kinds of different floaties, like, sometimes they'll have Power Rangers or a Pikachu or a Goku from Dragon Ball Z. But this year they actually had The Rock. They had a likeness of The Rock in his famous fanny pack picture, which I'm pretty sure you've seen more than once on Instagram if you do follow him. And it's a really cute picture. And the reason why he had this float was to promote his new TV show on NBC called Young Rock, which is going to chart his young years before he started in the wrestling business, and of course when he was in college and all of the above. So that was really cool to see, and he had pretty cool stuff to say about it. He said, "Never in my wildest dreams. I've been a lucky SOB to have done some pretty cool stuff," except he didn't say stuff, "in my career. But after seeing my Young Rock fanny pack float in the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade, this might take the cake. This time in my life may represent when I just had $7 in my fanny pack, but at least I had enough cool to tuck in my turtleneck and wear fake silver jewelry because it was all I could afford. And my massive plucked raised eyebrow is the stuff that dreams and nightmares are made of. Float on, kid. You might just make it one day. Hashtag fanny pack for life. Hashtag Young Rock. Hashtag NBC." So his journey has just always, been inspirational to listen to and hear about. So congratulations to him and everything he has going on. Also in the news, we have Braun Strowman being reportedly injured. This past Raw, he was actually, booked to basically beat up on Adam Pearce, the authority figure that Raw and SmackDown both collectively have, and he went off on him, and basically he's been booked in a suspension angle to give him time off because of an injury. So we hope he gets better at some point, even though he felt like, I should be going for the WWE Championship that's held by Drew McIntyre now, but now he's injured, so he really can't do that, so we wish him well. Also in the news, we have Xavier Woods, who's been announced as one of the new hosts of the reboot of the G4 channel. Now, if you were a video gamer, this channel was on, I want to say in early 2000s, where it was a channel specifically made towards video games and video game news and all kinds of stuff like that. And since G4 has, since it was discontinued, and then now it's like reinvigorated. So since it's been reinvigorated, Xavier Woods of the New Day, who's also known as Austin Creed with his video game persona, made a hashtag called Creed for G4, and he's really always wanted to be sort of like this video game host, because even in his Instagram bio, it says that he wants to be a host for Nick Arcade, and he can totally do it. Now he's signed to be a host for G4 for On Air Talent, and he made it. And he made a statement saying, "Never in my wildest dreams did I expect hashtag Creed for G4 to gain so much momentum among WWE fans and gamers alike. As a lifelong video game fanatic, I have always held a genuine affinity for the G4 brand, and I am honored and humbled to be joining the G4 team at a time when interest in gaming and the gaming community has never been stronger." And G4 folded in 2014 after 12 years on the air, and now it's going to return next year. And he's the first on-air talent to be officially announced for the reboot. So we have congratulations to him, simply because of the fact that he loves video games so very much. He has his channel Up Up Down Down. He has his hands in so many different jars in terms of merchandise, and him and the New Day have been featured on the new Gears of War game, and they have t-shirts involving that. Like, Big E is also in a cartoon called Laser Wolf, and of course Kofi has his success as a wrestler, and he loves sneakers, and he features sneakers even on the Up Up Down Down channel. There is absolutely nothing that the New Day can't do at this point, and I feel like now it's safe to say that they are the greatest faction in WWE history, and this is not up for a debate. This is it. I will not fight you on that, simply because of the fact that they have their hands in so many different things, and out in wrestling and outside of wrestling, and you just cannot deny their star power. And it means the world to me, being an African American, and seeing them succeed in so many different avenues, and it's just really inspiring. So I'm grateful for them. And to end this news and gossipics segment on a sad note, Bob Ryder, who was the co-founder of TNA, sadly passed away this week. He was one of the founders, along with Jeff Jarrett, and Impact Wrestling released a statement saying everyone at Impact Wrestling is heartbroken by the passing of Bob Ryder, one of its founders, and in many ways the heart and soul of this promotion. As many fans know, but I actually didn't know, the very idea to create this company was born on Bob's fishing boat during a trip off the Gulf Coast in 2001. It is no exaggeration to state Impact Wrestling would have never existed without Bob's inspiration, and would not have gone on to entertain millions of fans over two decades, and without his passion and dedication behind the curtain. Anyone who remembers Bob on the 1990s Prodigy chats, or his role in launching OneWrestling.com, or him co-hosting WCW Live, knows few people love pro wrestling with the passion Bob did. And it's very clear that wrestling was his life from this statement, and he was very passionate about it. And we send thoughts and prayers to the Ryder family in their loss, and we wish him nothing but peace during his transition, and that wherever he is resting. And that's the end of the news and gossipish segment. And now I'm going to go to my one-on-one with the Undertaker tribute. Okay, so this is going to be my one-on-one with the Undertaker tribute. This past Sunday, the Undertaker retired officially at Survivor Series, which was ironically where his career started as the Undertaker 30 years ago. And if you've seen any of the advertisements or articles or commercials about it, you know that it's a pretty big deal, even though at one point it looked like, he had retired, but then he came back or whatever. And I even said on my show that I felt a little bit skeptical about this time. He really did retire. And the segment was just really beautiful on the show. Like, he came out, well, before he came out, he had a lot of his friends come out in the ring, in the form of Kane, of course, who was his brother with the Brothers of Destruction tag team. He had Triple H come out, Shawn Michaels come out, and a couple of other people who he was in a group with called BSK. And after they all came out, to applaud him, they played this amazing montage of all of his moments from beginning to end, from the beginning to the end of his career, to a Metallica song, which had the lyrics "We can't live forever," and it was very heartfelt, and it was really great. And then Vince McMahon stood in the ring and talked about, how can you say goodbye to someone who's given you, so much of himself for over 30 years? Like, even in the last Ride documentary, you can tell that Vince McMahon really does love The Undertaker on a personal standpoint, and really appreciates his loyalty and everything he's ever done for the business as a whole. And he said that the legacy of the Undertaker will live on for eternity. And then he introduced him with his gravelly voice that, you know, never seems to fade, even the older he gets. He said, "I give you the Undertaker." And yeah, that's my Vince McMahon voice. And then the set actually had these two standing orbs that had kind of it looked like lightning bolts playing music, and I can't remember the names of them, but my boyfriend was able to call them out immediately. And they were playing like the intro to the Undertaker's song, and then all you saw was purple and smoke, and then the Undertaker came out and he did his entrance and he walked out relatively slowly and stuff. It was a slow saunter, as what Michael Cole would say. And once he reached the ring steps, he actually floated up a little bit, which I thought was a really cool possible callback to the time he actually floated to the ring. And I thought it was the most amazing thing on the planet. I can't remember, I believe it was at a WrestleMania, but I remember the Undertaker floating to the ring, and in my mind, I'm just like, bro, like he has magic powers. And he floated up, and then he went in the ring and addressed the fans and said that after 30 years it's finally time to let the Undertaker rest in peace, and that he had laid so many souls to rest in this ring, and now it's time for him to go. But then after he did his Undertaker pose where he gets on his one knee and sort of does the tongue with the eyes rolling to the back of his head, they did this amazing and very tasteful hologram of Paul Bearer holding the urn saying, "Oh yes," and that made me want to cry a little bit, even though I didn't. It hit me in the heart, because right before, while he was making his entrance, a part of my spirit was saying, I actually said out loud, like, man, I wish Paul Bearer was here, because he passed away in 2013. So I was just like, man, I wish Paul Bearer was here. And then boom, he pops up in that hologram, and I'm just like, oh my God. And I know a lot of my podcast friends and a lot of people on social media were very emotional about that. They were crying, and I was just like, oh. And it made me feel some type of way too. And then after that, he made his entrance, back to the back, and that's where Survivor Series ended. And it's been really interesting. This year has just been interesting in sort of seeing the Undertaker be able to sort of come to grips with the fact that this isn't something that he can just keep doing for a long period of time. They say in wrestling it's really hard to retire because you love it so very much, and you just never truly know when is the time for you to hang it up. And a lot of the times when he would just come back for WrestleMania, or just come back for Survivor Series, or for SummerSlam, basically any of the big four pay-per-views, in more recent years, a lot of people will be like, oh, well, when is he going to retire? He doesn't have it anymore. His knees are bad. He's doing this. He's doing that. Like, he doesn't move the same and all this other stuff. Y'all know how wrestling fans kind of have a tendency to get whenever someone gets too old and we feel like, oh, they should just hang it up. We tend to get really cynical, and we tend to forget that this wrestler has given us so many points of joy in their prime. And it's almost like we tend to forget that once upon a time they made us feel something, and once upon a time, we loved them, for what they gave to us. And I hope that we can stop doing that as much and just sort of, cherish them while they're here. If there's anything this year has taught me, especially now, is that you have to be grateful for what you have, as opposed to, just picking it apart and destroying it. We have a tendency to do that as wrestling fans, and we need to do a lot better at, just cherishing what we have, because once it's gone, like in the case of The Undertaker now, it's gone. He was really the only kayfabe character we had left, and now he's gone. And yeah, we have Bray Wyatt the Fiend, and yeah, we have Alexa Bliss, being Demon Alexa. But at the same time, in the case of someone who's like a mystical character like that, we only have one, and that's still, and the Fiend is still a relatively new idea. The Undertaker had been around for a long time. We don't have that anymore. So I think now what I'm going to do is also talk about, my earliest memories of The Undertaker. My father, who is the reason why I watch wrestling now, had a action figure at my grandma's house. And he was dressed up in his Ministry of Darkness suit with this action figure. And he had his eyes, of course, rolled to the back of his head. And that action figure used to scare me as a child. Like, I'd be like, man, Dad, like, can you put that away? Like, can you put it up? And Dad would be like, no, it's The Undertaker. I'm not going to put it away. And I'd just be like, okay, fine. And it used to scare me. And when I was younger, and wrestling would come on and stuff, my cousins would pretend to be him all the time. And they would, whenever we would play pretend, one of them would be The Undertaker, and one of them, I remember my cousin Jamari would be like, I'm going to take your soul. And he would grab your forehead, and then you'd have to fall out and die. And it was just really funny. And then they'd roll their eyes in the back of their head and be like, ugh. Y'all know how boys play pretend. It's crazy. And it's just really creepy, when you're a girl and you're just kind of like, no, don't take my soul or whatever. But at the same time, that's how important The Undertaker was to people, that, and stuff like that. And I also remember the time me and my dad went to World of Wheels years ago, and The Undertaker was doing like an autograph signing, because at World of Wheels they would always have all kinds of celebrities come and do meet and greets. And The Undertaker came, and that line was really long, and a part of me wanted to stay in line, but my dad was like, this is too long, I'm not staying, let's go. And I was sad because, how many times do you get to really meet a wrestler like that? At least when I was a child, I thought that it was few and far between. Now that I'm an adult, as a wrestling fan, and I've met so many wrestlers now, I'm still grateful for it, and I'm still excited about it, even now. And my inner child gets to sort of, relive. My inner child gets to sort of be happy in the idea that now I get to meet wrestlers and not just sort of have someone else, pull me out of line and say, oh, it's time to go. No, like, I'm a diehard fan, and I'm going to stay in this line because I want to meet this wrestler, and I'm going to get this autograph, and I'm going to talk to them now. So no, I'm not moving. But yeah, like, The Undertaker was sitting at a table, and he looked so regular. Like, I believe this was during his Biker Taker era. Like, he had on jeans and stuff, and he had somewhat brown hair, and he was wrapped up in a bandana. And I was just like, man, there he is right there, like a wrestler in the same room as you. Like, it was crazy, but I didn't get to meet him that time. Maybe one day I'll meet him at some point. We'll see. Hopefully my life will get that lucky. And I remember seeing him live at WrestleMania 27 in Atlanta, where he was facing Triple H. Not the first time, but the second time. This match was a lot to process, because we were sort of watching them, slug each other and hurt each other, and basically, try to murder each other. It was pretty funny, because even as he won that match, he was laid out in the ring, and they had to get someone they had to get like this truck to sort of pick him up, and help him, go back to the ring. And Triple H was laid out in the ring too. And this match was really one of the best ones they had. Now, they do, in WWE lore, they do talk a lot about the one they had at WrestleMania 28, which was the end of the era match when they were in the cage. And I believe Shawn Michaels was the special guest referee. But 27 was really, the one that I saw, and it was really cool. Plus, not to mention, I loved how The Undertaker, made his entrance at WrestleMania to Johnny Cash's Ain't No Grave. And even though you can look on the WWE Network and they sort of, dubbed over that song with The Undertaker's real theme song, being there and knowing, that they used that song and witnessing that entrance was just awe-inspiring. It's like you saw all the darkness and all the fire, and you see him walking with this hat, and you just see and you hear Johnny Cash saying, ain't no grave can hold my body down. Ain't no grave can hold my body down. It was like, ooh. It was just so cool. Plus, I love Johnny Cash, so that was just really amazing to sort of witness. It was really scary, and then all you hear is Johnny Cash saying, meet me, Jesus, meet me in the middle of the air. I was like, wow. it was just really cool and creepy. It was just like, man, this is great. Now, something that was kind of hurtful during his, later years is sort of seeing him sort of slowly move around. And I mentioned that before, how you saw him aging, but yet he was still trying to hold on to whatever it is, whatever mystique he still had left. And there was a point where even I was wondering, when is he gonna, let it go? When is he gonna chill? But I would still sort of hold out the belief that, maybe he would get better, or maybe, he would be able to still give us that magic that he used to give us. Now, if you go back and watch the last Ride documentary, you see that before a lot of his big matches, he would have surgeries, and he was really in more pain than he would let on, and he was just pushing so hard, to give us anything, that he could give us. Like, he just wasn't, giving up. And then it was even more heartbreaking with the match he had with Goldberg at Super Showdown, I think, or Crown Jewel, one of the Saudi Arabia shows. And everybody was just ribbing him, but mostly ribbing Goldberg for what happened. And he was also ribbing himself. Like, there was even a point where he was ribbing himself with that match he had at Roman Reigns at that WrestleMania in Orlando. Like, he felt like he could have given Roman Reigns a much better match than the one he gave him. And which goes to show you that even on social media, when we crap on wrestlers, nobody craps on you worse than yourself. And I feel like we tend to forget that that these wrestlers are human beings, and they want to give the best performances of their lives. And we have a tendency to sort of, boo-boo on them when they don't give us, what we're used to. And that's a sense of entitlement that I feel like we've sort of, cultivated as wrestling fans, as opposed to really, being grateful for what they do give us. And because we don't know what they're going through behind closed doors. We don't know the battles that they're dealing with in their mind or in their body. So I feel like we should be grateful for everything he's given us. And with that Roman Reigns match, it looked like he was retiring even then, because after that match ended, he took off his hat, he took off his jacket, he took off his gloves, and he went to Michelle McCool, his wife, and kissed her. And he went back to the ramp. He walked back to the ramp and sunk back down and did the hand raising thing. And everybody cried. And there was an outpour of support and love on social media, even from people who I didn't even think were wrestling fans, who were like bummed out that he retired. Like, oh man, like it's been this many years and he's retiring, with the hashtag "Thank you, Taker," like this time. So it was just kind of like, man, like we thought that was it. But as you can see, it clearly wasn't it, because he wasn't satisfied. So he decided to go forth and wrestle all of his matches that he's wrestled in the past 3 years now. But now he's actually finished. And now we have to navigate a wrestling world without an Undertaker. And something else that has been interesting is the fact is being able to watch him do all these interviews as himself, as Mark Calloway. He's never broken kayfabe. Like, this is the most in the past few years, him on social media and him on, with the interviews that he's doing, even with People Magazine and all that, is the most I've ever seen him break kayfabe in the 30 years he's done this. And honestly, I feel like he's earned it. I feel like we've earned the ability to see him as an actual human being and as an actual person, because he's given us so much as fans. And I'm grateful for everything that Mark Calloway has given us as a character. I'm grateful for everything that Kane gave us along with him. And I'm most definitely even more grateful for everything that Paul Bearer, William Moody, gave us before he passed away, because I actually watched his documentary. And it was inspiring to know that somebody like Paul Bearer was actually from, my neck of the woods. He's from Mobile, Alabama. It's not my neck of the woods specifically, because of course Alabama is a big state, but he's from Alabama, and I'm really grateful that someone like him was able to pursue both of his passions as a wrestler and as a manager and as a funeral director, which also speaks to me because I work in a funeral office right now. I work in a cemetery office, and it's just now I'm doing this podcast on the side as well, pursuing wrestling as a passion to a certain degree. And it's very inspiring that these people love wrestling so much that they give us everything they have with this character, with their lives, and all of the above. And it's beautiful when the people who work as wrestlers and work in the business love wrestling as much as you do as a fan. So this is not really a goodbye to the Undertaker, but more of a see you later, because I'm pretty sure we'll see him do other things like possibly coaching or on social media and stuff. But it's a goodbye to the character. And it's so funny because I was just telling my boyfriend's mom, like, 30 years, that's almost as long as I've lived, because I'm 27, my boyfriend's 28 years old. We're almost 30. Like, he's been out here wrestling since a little bit before we were born. So now we've got to navigate the rest of our lives without an Undertaker. It's a new undertaking, which is why I named my episode after that. So I love you, Undertaker. I love you, Mark Calloway. I thank your family for sharing so much, of him with us, and I'm just really grateful for that. And until then, may the character rest in peace, and may Mark Calloway find his rest in his next chapter. Okay, so I was sitting with my friends one day and they asked me, Stephanie, how do you record your podcast? And I said, with the Anchor app on my phone. And they were like, are you serious? I'm like, yeah, it's that simple. It is absolutely free. There are creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone and your computer. And it will distribute your podcast for you so it can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and many more. You can also make money from the podcast with no minimum listenership. And it's got everything you need to make a podcast in one place. They even have classes and stuff that you can listen to that will give you all kinds of good tips on what you need to do in order to make the best podcast. So if you want to do this, download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. That's anchor.fm, or download the free Anchor app to get started. All right, so this is normally where I would do a weekly recap of the events of Raw, NXT, AEW, and SmackDown. And I did watch all the shows this past week with everything that's going on. And also, I was fortunate enough to be featured in an episode of Talk Behind the Ropes with Tyron Asbury, Derek Gamble of Rap and Wrestle and Wrestling IQ 101, and Miranda Morales in all of her shows, The Miranda Show and Lucha Central, and Rob Williams of the Bob Culture Podcast. Please listen to them. And of course, Thanksgiving was this past Thursday, and I had a great Thanksgiving. I called family members and talked to them for a long period of time, and ate dinner with my family, my mom, my sister, and my dad. And it was really nice, and it was really peaceful, and I was working on this episode. But also, as you know, this Thanksgiving looked different for a lot of people, in the sense that we couldn't have large gatherings, and we couldn't, and there are some people and some families who have members missing because they've lost some to the coronavirus pandemic. And I feel so sorry for any family that has had to suffer in that way. And my heart and thoughts and prayers go out to everyone that's been affected by this, because it hasn't been pretty. It's taken a lot to process the fact that this one thing has just been darting around and sort of wrecking shop and taking away from people in so many different ways. And I've been trying to remain as positive as I can about it, doing everything that I can to try to flatten the curve and be as careful as I possibly can be. And even my family has done that. But somehow or another, sometimes in life, you can do whatever you can to be careful of certain things, but life has a tendency to still hit you with its uncertainty. And in more ways than one, somewhere, someone close to me has been affected by this. And it's a person that I love very dearly in my heart and soul. And if you know me personally, you know who it is. And I'm not going to say who it is on the show, but it's someone really close to me. And the past few hours have been really rough on me mentally and emotionally, because it just doesn't feel fair that this thing has sort of spread when it could have been preventable. It's not necessarily fair that it's, just taking any and everything it chooses to take. And it doesn't feel fair that it's robbed so many people of experiences and moments that we've gotten used to. It's just really hard emotionally for me to really deal with it. But after speaking to my higher power this morning twice, and speaking to people who are close to me who also believe in my higher power, who I am in choir with, and people who are leaders, in my own life, and my family members, like, I have more strength than I had yesterday in dealing with it. And I am so grateful for the people in my life who have gathered around me to give me all the love and support that they have. And I'm going to try my best to navigate this as best as I can, and to believe that a new day is on the horizon and something great will come out of this. I'm trying so hard to believe that. And I know that this is a show that's centered around being chill, positive, and passionate. And I try to be positive in most things, but sometimes it gets really hard to be. And I have my moments where I sort of go in and out with it, but just know your girl is trying. So I still wanted to give a show and still talk about, wrestling, because it's an escape now. And this podcast and wrestling seems like the only thing that I have at this stage right now, because that hasn't been sort of snatched away from me at this point. So this week I'm going to be doing interviews and stuff, and hopefully come out with a new episode, or maybe 2 this week. I'm not sure, because I'm also on vacation this week too. And hopefully blessings will still come out of it, and you'll feel good about this too. But I want to end my podcast by saying this, please be careful. Please be mindful of others. Please protect yourself. Please be safe. Wear your mask. Deep clean everything. Wash your hands. And just be mindful of everyone and everything that's, being affected by this. And we will pull through this together. And just continue to send out your good thoughts, your good prayers, your vibes, or whatever it is you believe in towards me and my family at this point. It's greatly appreciated. And with that in mind, thank you for supporting the Hardy Wrestling Podcast so far this year. You can follow me at Hardy Wrestling Podcast on Instagram, and at Hardy Wrestling Hardy Wrestling with Stephanie Hardy on Facebook, and at Hardy WrestlePod on Twitter. And if you have a mind to, you can follow me and my personal accounts on Twitter at Queen Steph Hardy, and it's the same handle for my Instagram at Queen Steph Hardy, and on Facebook Stephanie LaShawn Hardy. And if you have any questions about wrestling, you can ask me, or if you're going through something that's kind of rough, you can also ask me about it too. I can be a support system, or if you want to be a support system for me, you can do that too. So thank you so much for the ride. Thank you for supporting me throughout all of this and throughout this year. And until next time, this is the Hardy Wrestling Podcast, your favorite chill, positive, and passionate wrestling show. And until next time, bye y'all.